This is Walter Ogier, member of your class, one of the class officers. Welcome to the Williams 78 Connect program. This is our, fourth, maybe fifth program in the series. We've been trying to do kind of one a month or every couple months. We have more than 75 people registered for tonight, so we're going to have a lot of us. So it looks like we already do. And so thank you all for joining, and thanks to Kate Stone Lombardi and John Farmacus, who were fellow officers who have really teed up the program. Tonight's moderator for this session is going to be Julie Dunn, and she's going to introduce the panelists and the topic, and also tell us how to manage the Zoom call. So I'll turn it over to her now, and we're going to try to aim for a hard stop at 9 because of the presidential debate. You guys might want to go record on the debate in case we run a little long. You don't have to watch the commercials, but hopefully we can all stay online till the end, and I'll turn it over to Julie.
Great, thank you, Walter. And first of all, I want to welcome everybody. I hope everyone on the call or on the Zoom and your family and your communities are safe and healthy. These are difficult times. I am Julie Dunn, however, still was then and still am. As Walter said, we're using Zoom tonight. It's worked well for the other sessions. We are recording the session. It will be made available to all classmates by email after the session's over. The college is taking care of that for us, which is fantastic. We are happy that this is our fifth 78 Connect session. We had one on teaching in prison with Kate Lombardi, John Bedford Lloyd, and Todd Eckerson, perspectives on professional and collegiate sports programs during and after the pandemic by Tim Layden. We had perspectives from the sleep doctor by John Winkleman, and migration and maintaining roots just last month. And that was with Chuck Sanders, Pam Jennings, and Marty Williams. So we're just thrilled to have that. And I want to say thank you to all our class officers for supporting these sessions, and to Ashley Weeks-Cart, who many of you know. She's on the call tonight with us from Williamstown in her role as Deputy Director, Alumni Relations, Director of Classes and Reunions. She'll make sure it's recorded. Our goal is to make this informative, interactive, engaging. We have tried and will continue to do a range of topics and speakers. Let me first say that tonight's session, and then I'll get into more details of how we're going to run it. Tonight's session is focused on LGBTQ+, looking back and looking forward. We want to be offering some reflections on the immense changes that have occurred regarding the LGBTQ+ community since our class attended college. Today's students, by and large, live openly with acknowledged differences in gender orientation, gender identity, and gender expression. And this is compared to the late 1970s, when being at Williams, as we know, if you were gay, essentially meant staying in the closet. We also want to think about the challenges that do remain and how to support the LGBTQ community going forward. So the format is going to be, I'm going to do a Q&A of our guest speakers. That should last about half an hour. You're all going to be muted during that. And then it's going to be opened up for questions. And we hope, as Walter said, to wrap it all up in about an hour. But before we start, I want to share the names of some of our classmates that we lost in the earlier epidemic that affected our college community, HIV/AIDS. As we all remember, this disease infected the gay community early on and before the disease was recognized. The list I'm going to share is not meant to be complete. If you know of others, please share them in the Q&A or put them in the chat if you can. As we all recall, the stigma of having this virus initially slowed the public focus on the disease, and it was through the brave public action of the LGBTQ+ community that the profile was raised, so the silence surrounding it was broken, and the medical community received the resources so they could advance the life-saving research. So the classmates I believe we lost through AIDS are Bradley Kane, Michael Crowley, Peter Glue, and Mark Layton. And again, if you know of others and you want to have them remembered, you can put them in the chat or mention their names in the Q&A. So now I want to welcome our two amazing 78 classmates. John Martin, who's joining us from Miami. He is an MD. And Lisa Capaldini, who's joining us from the San Francisco area. She's also an MD. And but before I give them a chance to start, I'm going to just say one thing about why I'm the moderator tonight. I do have a personal interest in the topic. One of my children is transgender. So I have an experience of looking at the situation today for this community with intense interest. I also really hope for a future in which everyone can bring their true selves without fear into whatever environment they enter. And I also have intense gratitude for the changes that have already been made for the lives and in the lives for the LGBTQ plus community. So it's less dangerous than it used to be. So I'm going to ask questions of John and Lisa. I think I'm going to start with Lisa and then John. They'll have, I hope, about 2 minutes to answer them. I do ask them, even though it's debate night, that they refrain from interrupting and talking over each other.
What fun.
And so there we go. So
John, you ignorant slut.
So the first question, and I'll start with you, Lisa, and then we'll go to John. So first of all, given where we are in the country today, how are you and your loved ones holding up in the pandemic? And feel free to introduce yourself a little bit.
Well, Lisa Capaldini, I went out to medical school in San Francisco right after Williams and stayed put and did my training at San Francisco General Hospital, becoming an HIV specialist. As most of you know, the drugs are so much better now. Most of my HIV patients are healthier than my non-HIV patients. I've been very much in a medical bubble with COVID, both professionally and personally. No friend, no family member has had it. Only 5 of my patients have had it. So I feel remarkably sheltered and blessed.
John, can you?
Yeah, thank you everyone for coming. I was sort of wondering how many people would actually show up for this, and it's pretty exciting to see that so many of you have joined us. I'm down in Miami. I went to Boston, which is where I came out after going to Williams, and then moved down here to Miami where I do facial plastic surgery. So far, no exposure to COVID. No one in my family has had it, so I've been very lucky and doing well down here in spite of it being a hot spot.
Great. So the second question, let me go back to Lisa. And we'll start with a big one. How did you negotiate being gay in your academic, social, extracurricular, and emotional life back in the old days?
Well, honestly, it started out with obliviousness. I didn't realize I was gay till the end of my sophomore year. And when I did, it was kind of a mental realization, but I wasn't involved with anyone till my senior year. So it's kind of this abstract, oh, this is who I am, but it didn't have a lot of reality behind it. My experience was very contextualized by the Saturday Night Coalition. You guys may remember this was a group of people who were working to get Williams rape free, to think about the college's stock in South African companies, and finally to try to get sexual orientation on the college's non-discrimination clause. So I talked about that latter issue quite a bit, but it was very clear to me when I did that people weren't assuming or knowing that I was gay doing it. So it was kind of this way to sort of be out, but not be. I would, to be absolutely honest, I think that I was quite intimidated when I showed up freshman year, when the beer keg party was happening in the freshman quad, and I saw all these people who knew each other, and I didn't know anybody, and I didn't know how to drink beer, and I was thinking already, wow, I'm not sure I fit in this place. But that wasn't an issue of being gay. It was more the kind of preppy archetype that I was unfamiliar with and not sure how to negotiate.
Thank you, Lisa.
Okay. you know, it's a very different world today. And for any of you who have kids, you definitely know that. And I just wanted, Julie sent me a thing that had some Williams history of gay things. But, you know, when we were at school, it wasn't until 1973, actually, that the American Psychiatric Association changed their diagnosis from mental illness for homosexuality. So that was right before we started. And so until then, you had a mental illness if you were gay. So you certainly didn't want to be gay. And there was a thing called the WGSO in 1976. It was the first gay support organization at Williams. And the same year at Mission Park, supposedly students stood up on chairs to protest the existence of this group. I never even heard of it. I don't know if you did, Lisa, but I didn't even know it was there. But I was not going to admit I was gay anyway. Then in 77, John Chandler, who was our president, opposed a change to the non-discrimination policy to include sexual orientation. And in 1978, the faculty rejected the College Council proposal to amend the non-discrimination policy. So as someone who was even thinking about being gay, it wasn't a place where you wanted to be gay because no one was going to support you. And so, you know, I think I wasn't self-confident enough to really come out to anybody. I was so frightened of what would their reaction be. And so I was just trying to deny it myself and hoping that someday I'd be straight because I wanted to be normal. I didn't want to have a mental illness. And we just didn't see it at all. No one, I don't think anyone said the word gay when we were at Williams. It just didn't exist. And, you know, there was no support group except for this one that I didn't know about, but I wouldn't have gone to it anyway. So it was a tough, not a tough time. You know, I had a great years and, you know, I loved, you know, so many good friends, but it was not something I was going to talk to people about.
Thank you both. So following up on that, what do you think you and others, you know, those of us who are both, you know, some of us are gay, some of us are straight, missed out on because of that stigma? What did we miss at college? Lisa?
Well, Julie, I think you nailed it in your introductory comments when you talked about authenticity, that there's nothing special about being able to be authentic as a gay person more than being a Black person or more than being a woman or whatever. And I think whenever there's one or more groups that can't be authentic, it kind of metastasizes to the whole community and no one can be authentic. So the more I reflect about my time at Williams, which in many ways was absolutely the Garden of Eden, I think about how most of us, myself included, didn't talk a lot about feelings or being intimidated or being okay asking a dumb question in class. There was kind of this veneer of we're all good and we're all smart and we're all managing. And I think that's unfortunate for everybody. And I very much hope that what the college is doing to try to reach out to gender minorities is also extended to everybody, because I think anybody can feel authentic and it can feel very hard to not fit in.
Thank you, Lisa. John?
Yeah, you know, I agree with Lisa. It's tough in a small school environment. If you were at a big school in a city, I think it would have been very different. But in a small school, there was definitely sort of pressure to fit in and not be different, or at least I didn't want to be different. And I think it would have been great to know that there were other gay people there, so that then you would have been able to either have relationships or discuss your feelings with people. And like Lisa said, be more authentic. This is who I am. And nowadays people say, that's great, who cares, you know? But we were all afraid to say that back then. And but it was a different world, you know, it was a different time.
I'd also throw in that, to my knowledge, none of the faculty were out. And I think that definitely sends a message to the students. If it's not a safe place for the faculty to be out, it's probably not a safe place as a student. When I went back to Williams about 15 years ago, there was a faculty panel on sexual orientation, and each faculty member talked about how their work in their discipline, history or economics or French studies, was connected to their sexuality. And I thought, wow, this is really cool. And that would have been awfully nice to have when I was there.
Wow. Wow. Oh, wow. Okay, so the next question. When or in which situations were you most comfortable at Williams? And were there times where you felt fully accepted, I guess, able to be fully authentic?
John, you want to go first?
Sure. I guess that I was pretty comfortable at Williams. It's just that I wasn't out at all at Williams. But like I said before, I also was trying to deny that I was gay because I didn't want to be, And then it wasn't until med school that I said, what am I doing? This is so much more comfortable. And I kind of tiptoed into areas that would be considered more gay, probably because of you, Julie, like doing things with the dance groups, which you're sort of labeled, stigmatized if you do dance, or sing, and I did both. But so that's sort of, for me, that was a way to sort of get into that society of, or at least kind of be labeled without being labeled. But it was tough,
Yeah. Lisa, how about you?
Well, I don't really think about being comfortable as a gay woman. I think about when did I feel most integrated in the college experience? And by far, it was when we would do the ceremony of carols at Christmas time, and the choir would walk into the chapel with candles, and we would hear Professor Fuqua read the beginning of the Gospel of John in Greek. And it was like just this amazing, immersive experience. And at the risk of being a total geek, I would say for me, the place I felt most comfortable was the classroom, because there, all this "who are you" stuff seemed to be less relevant than just talking about what we're reading or studying. At the same time, I don't remember in any course I took at Williams the discussion of sexual minorities, even that existed. So even in a course like Religion 101 or secularism or philosophy, this didn't come up.
Mm.
But you're right, because you said, when you're studying with a group of people, for example, it's all academics and education. So you're not talking feelings or, things that would be more difficult to really discuss. It's more, what's the answer? What are we doing? And we're here to learn. So you're more comfortable, I think.
Experience when we were doing the Saturday Night Coalition thing. I was going around Tyler House trying to get my Tyler House folks to sign a petition. And I approached a woman who was an add-on to our class, someone who joined junior year. She was clearly from a working class environment in Boston. And I really liked her because she was a straight shooter. And I asked her if she was willing to sign this sexual orientation clause thing. And she said, no, I'm not comfortable with the whole gay thing. I don't even know if she said gay or homosexual or whatever. And I said, okay, but thanks for letting me talk to you about it. Later on, she found out that I was gay. I don't know how she found out. And she came running up to me and said, Lisa, I'm so sorry. I had no idea this was a personal thing for you. I would never want to hurt your feelings or make you feel judged. And I thought, that to me, I thought was a very cool thing. It took a lot of guts on her part.
Yeah. Wow. Well, Lisa, I don't know that you kind of answered the next question without me answering it. Asking it was, were there times you did not feel comfortable, and what were those feelings like? And did you have any memories of situations that you look back on that were particularly meaningful, or was there cases of bullying, or I don't know. I'd ask you and John if there were
I
really uncomfortable.
I have a gay brother. He's 5 years younger than me, and we've talked a lot. And I really have the sense that it's harder being a young gay man than a young gay woman. Now, and part of that is that a lot of people don't take women's sexuality very seriously. It's just not threatening. Oh, you're a lesbian because you are friends with your gal pal, but you'll grow up and get married and whatever. So it's partly an issue of being less threatening, not being taken seriously. So I never felt bullied or hassled, but I also, to be honest, don't think I ever put myself in a position where that could happen.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think the whole issue of homosexuality was just not on a lot of people's radar. They just weren't thinking about it. I did have one incident of someone a year ahead of us. He was pretty drunk, and he was, faggot slurs. And he was someone I'd known for a long time, so I was a little bit surprised, but I don't know if he even remembered it the next day. But on the other hand, it's interesting that when I think back now, I do remember times talking to some people who were probably trying to let me know that they were gay, but it was like, I'm not going there, but now that I think about it, I realize that's what they were probably trying to tell me, but I was clueless, so no one wanted to say anything to anyone. It was very, very closeted.
Wow. So on the other hand, though, if you felt different at times, how did feeling different help you connect to others? And were there times when it might have been a bridge? Did it feel like a bridge rather than a barrier? And I don't know what you're going to say about that.
Julie had asked me this question, and I said I wasn't self-confident enough to feel that it was a bridge. I think anyone who did come out really had a lot of confidence in who they were. And so for me, I guess I wasn't thinking that I was really different at that point. So I don't think of it as a bridge. Yeah.
That's cool. Okay. Lisa.
Well, my experience was that I had grown up in West Virginia till 12, where being a Catholic was weird. Like they thought we sacrificed children and at mass. And then we moved to Greenwich, Connecticut, culture shock. And then I was weird because I had an accent and I said, yes, sir, and no, ma'am. And these little Greenwich kids beat me up just because I was different. And even, and I remember in 5th grade thinking, wait a minute, these people are supposed to be sophisticated and it threatens them because I say yes, sir, and I have an accent. And that was kind of my introduction to kind of trying not to let being different, let people pick on me. That it's inevitable that someone's going to find something about you that they don't like. And if you let that determine how you live your life, you're not going to get very far. Now that sounds very brave, but it was much more pragmatic than brave. I do want to mention when we had that faculty meeting you mentioned, well, what happened was we were trying to get sexual orientation on the non-discrimination clause. And 2 of us, Sousa Coffey was one, and I was the other. 2 of the students were allowed to attend and speak. And we got to hear the faculty rationalize why sexual orientation didn't need to be included. Things like, from our ooey gooey minister, chaplain, well, since we don't discriminate, we don't need to say we don't. To the chairman of the political science department saying the sexual orientation was too vague a term and it would rationalize arson and bestiality on campus. And I have to say, it was a really educational moment for me because I realized how you can use intelligence to rationalize anything, no matter how stupid it is. And here were these people I admired, my teachers, clearly in outer space morally. And there was one guy in the faculty, Peter, did Japanese stuff. I don't know if you guys remember his last name. And he was the only person in the faculty who openly pushed for it. And he said, I want us to do this before Princeton does.
Peter Frost.
Peter Frost, there you go. Yes. So that was a really amazing thing to see, that the limits of institutional wisdom. And I also want to throw out that since that time, I think Williams has made huge inroads into being much more inclusive and proactive. But that was a shock to me to hear those things said publicly.
Wow.
I think, Lisa, I told you, after Williams, I went to Harvard for medical school, and the students tried to someone put up some posters for a gay support organization, and the administration took them down because they said they were too selective to have admitted gay students.
We snuck in.
I know. I mean, so that was the attitude back then, it's maybe that was the attitude at Williams. I don't know,
Yeah. Oh, wow. I kind of feel like this question's already been covered well, part of the question was, were there negative messages from the college? Lisa, I think you shared stories and yeah, John also, but were there any kind of supports from the college available? I just don't know if you remember any kind of supports from the college at that time.
Well, just that the Saturday Night Coalition activities got publicized in the
Okay.
paper.
Okay.
Because one of the ways that minorities have been suppressed historically is just not to have any media coverage. So the fact that that was even covered was a great thing.
Okay. Okay.
You know, even the Saturday Night Coalition, it doesn't sound like a gay group or a gay support group at all. So I don't think there was anything that was specific towards sexual orientation at all.
Okay.
Well, actually, we had 3 platforms, and getting the sexual orientation thing in was the 3rd one.
Okay.
But you're right. It wasn't like the Saturday Night Coalition is a gay rights group.
Yeah.
You were the only group.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my other half of that question, as I said, was, were there any negative messages? We've heard a couple. I don't know if either of you, have anything else you want to add on that item.
No.
No. Okay. And were there any times you felt like you actually came out of the closet when you were at Williams?
Well, I told some of my friends,
Okay.
and that was great. It's kind of like letting the air out of a balloon. So even just a handful of people helps. It doesn't feel so fraught, such a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is sort of sad, but 2 nights before we graduated, there was a graduate art student who confided to me that he was gay. And then I told him that I thought I was too. So I really waited till the last minute.
Wow.
So.
Wow. That is kind of sad. So now let's talk a little bit about after times. I just asked both of you to reflect briefly on what do you think were the strongest influences in our society or in our world that you interacted with that created a more welcoming environment for the LGBTQ plus community in the years since we were in college, and have the changes directly affected your life? Lisa, you want to start?
Okay, sure. I think one thing is simple media presence, particularly social media, where everybody can access queer stuff. So even if you're a kid in a small town, you can get your hands on stuff like this. I remember going to the library and trying to find the gay books, and you could tell the gay books had been read a lot, but no one signed them out. It was really funny. Remember how you used to sign your name to sign out a book? They were snuck out of the library. So the presence of media, and I also think that the fact that some people came out helped it for other people, and not just public people like Ellen DeGeneres. I mean, if your next door neighbor comes out, it's hard for you to see gay people as this odd thing when it's your next door neighbor who helps you take out the recycling. And finally, in my world, the HIV epidemic, because that horribly outed a lot of gay men to their families and their communities. And while there was a lot of bad stuff in there, there was also a lot of unveiling and beautiful connections. I know when I started training at San Francisco General, a lot of my fellow residents weren't crazy about working with gay men. And I saw them evolve over a 3-year period when they had the chance to work with these guys and their families and their partners and start to see them as people who happen to be gay.
Thank you, Lisa. John?
All right. It's interesting. Sue Stred just wrote something on the chat board that she said at Bryan House, they did actually have some sort of a support group. And I do remember that there were a couple of people that came out there, but so that was great. That was a start. Lisa was talking about social media, and it was also just media in general. When we were at Williams, first of all, there was almost no TV. I think there was one TV at Dennett House in the basement that no one watched. But even if you did watch TV or movies, there were never any positive portrayals of gay people. It was a real stereotypical, maybe very feminine guy or maybe a very butch woman, but you just didn't see it. And so it's through the years that now you turn on TV, women are kissing, the guys are kissing. It's just so much more accepted. And you see more positive portrayals, uh, you know, in all sorts of media. And like Lisa said, if you want to look something up, you just have to go to the internet. So I think that's been the biggest change, is just exposure. And like Lisa said, as more people come out, and there was a big push um, after we were Williams, sort of in the 80s and 90s, for more people to come out, because as Lisa said, once more people come out and there's more exposure, then people do say, oh, well, I know that person, they're gay and they're okay, they're no different than I am. But it takes, and I think we're at that point now where there are just so many more people who are out that um, there's less of a stigma about coming out, at least in certain areas of the country.
Mhm. Right.
Hey,
Given
Julie,
what-
one thing, I think that I just wanted to throw in that all of us are probably pretty blessed to be in a bubble around this. And I was thinking a lot about this conversation after you and John and I talked. And the next day, one of my patients came in to see me who had been gay bashed in a mall in Las Vegas in the middle of the day, just attacked. And that was a real reminder to me that while we've made incredible progress, any given gay person or any given member of a sexual minority still is at the mercy of some unhinged people. And that, like, for example, it's great to hear you, Julie, talk about your kid's school experience, but I don't think that's percolated all the way down to the average.
You're right.
Mhm. Yeah.
But can I say one other thing? But at least for the people who are, let's say, I don't know, in some redneck area of the world where they can't come out, they do at least have their computer to see that there are other people out there who will provide some support for them, and to know that they're not alone in that. They had this whole thing a few years ago, I think, It'll Get Better, and all these things on it. There was this whole series of people who would do these little videos saying how it started and how life has gotten better for them. And it really went out to the gay community. And it was really to get to these kids who were in areas where they might be still incredibly ostracized by both friends and families. People still get kicked out of houses, their homes.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So given what you know of supports for the queer community at Williams today, how do you think your college experience might have been different? Was there one thing you think would have helped the most? Like what was the one thing, if you could wave a wand, what's the one thing they're doing now that would have been great?
Well, for me, it would have been to have more meetings with the JAs in my freshman dorm. And to have us just sit around and be with each other on a regular basis, so that we would talk about things like feeling vulnerable or overwhelmed or different or whatever. Because I think if you can start on a micro level, that's usually more comfortable. And I had two amazing JAs, so and really looked up to them. I wish that had happened.
Yeah.
And I think if you're at a school where from the top down they say, there's a non-discrimination policy here that everyone has to adhere to, I think it really kind of frees you up to sort of say, okay, that's wonderful, and from the sounds of what people like Ashley was saying, it really has happened. There's, people, there's less bullying. There's people are much more accepting than they were when we were there. And it just has to be easier for these people coming in, even if they're not out yet. They know it's a possibility, and that if they do, they're going to be okay, and there's support there for them.
And Lisa, I think you kind of led into what's my last question, which is what are the remaining or current challenges and opportunities for the LGBTQ community as you see it from your perspective? And how can allies be the most supportive? And what's the work, where does the work need to go now in society?
Well, I think that any different group, gay people being one of them, has an opportunity to shed light on another option so that we all get the chance to be more authentic in how we choose to live our lives. So just as a quick example, the New York Times had this op-ed piece about gay couples being more satisfied than heterosexual married couples because there were less gender expectations around housework and childcare and things like that. A bunch of us laughed about that who've known gay couples who've gotten divorced. But anyway, that sort of thing about the opportunity to offer options, different options. But I also feel that to the extent that's what this is about, it's very important that the gay community gives back and supports other groups that have been marginalized in different ways. And that's one of the big tensions in the gay rights movement right now, which is how do we own and honor the diversity within the gay and lesbian and queer community and make sure everyone's included in our agendas.
Right. Just a quick thing before I give my whole answer, but even Pete Buttigieg, a lot of gay men said he doesn't represent us. He's too straight acting. What's up with that? So, and I've been on the board of directors for a group. It's called the Yes Institute down here in Miami. And it was originally formed about 25 years ago to help prevent bullying in the schools and in society, and especially of gay youth, so that it would decrease the incidence of suicides. So it was a support group because there were so many suicides in the gay community. Now it's interesting that they sort of say, well, the gay issue is gone. Now it's more transgender. And so they're the next group that really is sort of the focus of the Yes Institute to make sure that they have the support, because it's even harder for them, I think. And I'm not sure what the plus stands for at the end of the LGBTQ plus, but
just I'm just going to share my executive committee experience.
Oh.
See if I can do it concisely.
Somebody's
Al Gentry. But,
okay.
But anyway, so I think that's the next thing is another group. But like Lisa said, the gay community has to be accepting of everyone, because any group that's been discriminated against needs to now be openly accepting of everybody, and that doesn't always happen either, so.
One thing that's interesting about being,
intersex folks who Sue Stred works with is one potential plus.
One really interesting thing about being gay is that you have the option to hide it. And many other minority members don't have that option. In general, you can't hide your gender. In general, you can't hide your ethnicity or your skin color. And it gives gay people this really weird option to not come out, which in a way can be a protected place, but also a dangerous place. The transgender folks who are choosing to transition, they have a very public unveiling that I have been, I've seen a few of my patients go through that, and it's been very moving, because just as gay stuff pushes some people's buttons, gender stuff really pushes some people's buttons. And I think it takes a great deal of courage.
I would agree. Thank you. Any last comment on that question, John? Or otherwise, I think we're ready to move to Q&A if you, unless you have something else.
Just one more thing about transgender. I have a bunch of transgender patients, and there's one woman in particular who has been unbotched a few times. And I have traveled with her, and she's about 6 feet tall, and she has these huge cement silicone nodules in her face. And it's amazing the number of people that walk by and then do these turnaround stares and little comments. But it's also been amazing when we go to the desk to, check in for a flight or go to a hotel, how courteous and respectful other people are. So there's hope. I think a lot of people are just saying, okay, whatever, we'll take you as you are. So.
Thank you. Great. We have time for questions from our attendees. And you can raise your hand there's a little hand thing. If you go to participants, you can raise your hand. I think, is that how you can do it? Or, yeah.
Or you can do this and we'll
You
see.
can also just wave, exactly. And someone should spot you. Oh, I see Paul Rovinelli. Can you
Oh,
unmute Paul? Somebody else? Okay.
Can you hear me?
yes,
Yes.
and see you.
I just wanted to fill in a little context because JM told, he went very quickly over something that I recognized. I think you must have done a little history looking, JM, just to kind of find out what was going on at the college in the 70s. And you made a very quick reference to something that I remember extremely well. You said something about someone standing on a chair. And
Right, I don't remember that at Mission Park.
I
They said
remember
they
it
stood
terribly
upstairs.
well. And I just want to tell the story because it's so horrible. And from somebody who had a long journey from his years at college, you can't even imagine what something like that incident, the effect that it had on someone like me. What happened was there was a guy in Mission Park who wrote an anonymous letter to the Williams Record. And about 10 years ago, I remembered this incident, but I couldn't remember really what was going on. So I went back to the Williams Record archives and I found the whole story. He sent an anonymous letter to the Williams Record, which was published. And he said that he wanted to start a gay support group. And that if anyone wanted to join this group, I don't know what they were supposed to do. Something like you were supposed to send a letter to, Baxter, somehow secretly he was going to gather these letters from people. And so I think I probably was aware of that from the newspaper. And I do remember who it was. So somehow some of us, we found out that this guy wrote this letter. But what happened was Mission Park lunchtime, the day that the letter was printed, a guy, I think I remember who he was too. He stood up on a chair and he read the letter out loud to everyone in the Mission Park lunchroom. Okay. If you think of that room, that big, beautiful, glassy room, there's a lot of people. We did not get up and stand on chairs and yell things to people. He read the letter out loud, but he read it in a lisp, is what he did. I can't really remember what happened. But my memory tells me that there was silence. I don't remember laughter. I don't remember anybody telling him to sit down. I don't really remember anything, just a kind of stone silence. He finished the letter and went back and sat down with his friends. But I guess the fact that it didn't really get answered in any way. I mean, this is something that to me is completely unimaginable today, that someone could do this and that get no reaction. But there it was. And so that tells you something about what some people thought in 1976.
Or a lot of people. It was a fear, no one wanted to say anything to him.
I remember the same thing happening in law school. It's pretty disturbing.
Anybody else have a question? Oh, Barb Phillips, I see.
Yeah, first, just thank you so much for sharing. It's such an opportunity for me to reflect back on who I was and where I was, at Williams. And I didn't know what a gay person was. And it kind of makes sense because you guys weren't really out. And things have certainly changed since then. I'm curious, how are you personally feeling about what's happening with the Supreme Court and the impact that might have on you personally, or all gay people for that matter?
Want to go, Lise?
Sure. Well, my biggest exposure to that, Barbara, has been hearing from my patients and friends who, some people are married and are concerned that their marriages will be invalidated. Other concerns about adoption of children, concerns about violence. It's a little odd being in San Francisco, California, because I know no matter what the federal government does, I will be okay here. But it does feel like this massive unraveling that's connected to a lot of other things. And it's part of a larger fabric.
I am hopeful that because the world has changed so much in terms of gay rights and the whole gay marriage has not destroyed society, like so many people have said, that they will consider this something that is not bad for society and let it continue as it is. And I may have my head in the sand to think this, but I am hoping. And I think, like Lisa said, I'm in Miami, she's in San Francisco. Those are cities where we're going to be free to do what we want. But it is, a big switch, a big turn conservatively could definitely mean some bad things for the gay community. What do you think, Barb?
Well, I'm pretty darn scared on many fronts.
Right.
Oh, I see. Anybody else have a question?
I think Quentin's got his hands up.
Quentin? Oh, okay.
Oh, hi, thanks. Just, of course, thank you very much for putting this together and hearing about this. Bringing it back a little bit to a micro level, though I'm very concerned and interested in Barbara's questions, of course. I wanted to say to Lisa, who I knew at Williams a little bit from afar, and I think when the Saturday Coalition was going on, I knew that you were involved as a spokesperson. And I was very, very curious. And I actually wanted to attend and didn't have the courage. And I also missed an opportunity to just tell you how much I admired what you were about. And I didn't have the maturity to kind of like come to grips and actually come and say that. But I just wanted to say that to you now, that I really had great admiration for what you were doing at that time. And I didn't even know why. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Quentin. I see we have Nancy Gray and Sarah Kavanaugh are interested in saying something.
So yeah, I'll go first. I have just a couple of comments. First of all, thanks, Lisa and John. Love you guys, and so nice to hear all these reflections, which are really helpful. My son just graduated from Williams, and I just wanted to put in a little plug for the fact that it's a completely different place now. I think you guys would be super happy to see, his latest girlfriend is bi, and it's like not a big deal. And I think this new generation, they're just so great and so accepting. And Williams is a really cool, inclusive place. I'm just throwing that out there. I think we've come a long way, thank goodness. And then the other just funny comment is, I was in theater and music with, John, you and I performed together, and Julie, and all you guys, Lisa too. We were in chorus and choir together. I don't know who said we were clueless. Like, I really didn't understand gay, and so I remember, Peter Glue, who used to play piano. I had a huge crush on Peter Glue, and he had to take me aside one time and say, Nancy, like, I couldn't get it through my head that, like, I'm not interested in you because, like, I'm not interested in girls. And it was really funny. And I just remember that moment because I love Peter Glue and miss him terribly. But I think, just the rest of us out there, we were stumbling around. We didn't know who was gay, who was straight. We were making mistakes all the time. So it was just kind of fun.
I was going to kick into comments that I had the same experience with Peter, except he never told me that. There were girls in the dorm that had big crushes on him, and they went unrequited. And it reminds me of a point that John raised about how much we missed out, or some people missed out on relationships and other things at Williams because they couldn't be honest about how they felt, and there were these sort of artificial walls between people that were erected.
Right.
I mean, college was for us in many ways an opportunity to test our wings on all these relationship things, and for some of us, it just wasn't going to happen.
4
Yeah.
years without a boyfriend, Walter.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Do we have Sarah had a question or a comment?
I did. I'm finding this super enlightening, and I really appreciate, Lisa and John, you being so open, and Julie. My sort of question is, like, was there something at Williams that sort of set you back, or was it neutral? Like, I really hate the thought that Williams actually hurt you. And then I'm wondering whether you think that things are going in the right direction now.
I think, I love my time there. I really did. And while it would have been a very different experience if I was out and it was a more accepting community, I think it's great that it is now. It was just a different era. I think it was like that no matter where you went to school. And so I'm certainly happy with where I did go and the experience I had there. So
I would echo that, and also say that one of the things I loved about Williams was that you didn't have to be an all-star to get on a team or be in the chorus, and the classes were small, so there really was a sense of participation, and I treasured my time there.
Lisa, you were a superstar.
Oh,
In basketball. We all remember that.
please.
But do you think the school is really moving in the right direction now, and actually ahead of the curve?
Well, what I'm not clear about is the school doing a great job, or is it more that society as a whole has moved, sorry, and that, not so, right? And that the college is kind of playing along. I remember that horrible Saturday Night Coalition meeting where I heard people rationalize not doing anything. And now as an institution, you can rationalize being pro-gay or pro-queer, partly for instrumental reasons, not because it's necessarily the right thing to do. So I don't know. I do want to say that when I went to that meeting and I saw 5 out faculty people, it blew my mind. It's like, wow, something's better here institutionally.
I just want to bring people's attention to a story that Al Gentry has shared in the chat about his involvement and the story of establishing the Gay and Lesbian Alumni Affinity Group. Reflects well on some and less well on others. So thank you, Al, very much for sharing that. Anyone else?
and supporting it.
Yeah, and well, putting it out.
Putting it in there, yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, quite the story. Do we have time for another? Yes, we do. It's not even debate time yet. So
I want to ask Lisa the names of the JAs.
Oh,
Remember
boy.
the names of the JAs?
It was Sage D, and I can't remember.
I remember their faces. I can't remember their names. I was hoping you could help me.
Yeah, what I loved about them, they were so down to earth, and they were smart, but that wasn't what their personhood was about. And I just remember as a freshman being so revved up and got to do this and got to do that. And they were pretty chill. And that was really what I needed. Sousa Coffey, by the way, who was in Sage D, is now one of the leading HIV doctors at UCSF. So she started out in art history and then got involved in acupuncture, and now is one of my HIV colleagues and extremely well respected.
wow.
Does anybody remember when the guys, what was the dorm office at Sage?
Williams.
Williams, I think it was Williams D. They put some speakers out on their little balconies, and as women crossed the quads, would announce a score, like a 7 or a 10. And that was our freshman year. And I had to say, I couldn't believe this was happening at Williams College. And as importantly, I couldn't believe that people weren't going to do anything about it. It was absolutely horrifying. Do you guys remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Well, Lisa, it's Tom Balderson. I was in Williams D. That must have been E, F, or C. 'Cause I don't think it was us.
All right.
I'm looking to see if anybody else from D is on here, but I'm not going to lay claim to that one.
All right, fair enough.
I remember freshman year, John, you used to have bump parties in the hallway across from my room where your room was, and you were getting along better with the girls than I ever did it. Having a blast. It was a good time.
It was. And that was a gay thing. You know, you hung around the girls. So
It's a positive.
Yeah, we have some people who remembered it in the chat. That certainly definitely happened. Well, it's 8:58 if my laptop is not lying. And so I don't know if there's any closing comments or one last question. We have a lot of, is John Lloyd, are you raising your hand? No, okay.
I've got one. I think there was a comment made that in our time at Williams, there wasn't even sex education, that women's health issues were not addressed, that, you know, that male-female sexual health issues were not addressed. It was just a very repressed time in our history. And
we were
think that
drinking.
if any place in a college that would have dealt with it, it would have been a place like Williams, but maybe not.
Mhm.
a lot of drinking, a lot of sex, but no education about it.
Yeah, that sounds brilliant, doesn't it? Oh my God. All right. I think we have answered not answered all the questions, but everybody who wanted to speak and raise a comment has been heard from. And so I just want to say thank you so much, John and Lisa. This has been absolutely wonderful. You've been so generous, so open-hearted, and I just want to say thank you from your class, from college. This is just very touching, moving, informative, and really meaningful. So thank you very, very much.
And thank you, Julie.
Thank you, Julie. Yeah, thanks, Lise.
Thanks to everybody that joined on
Thanks.
tonight.
Thank you all, and it's
everybody.
it's great to see you all.
Great job.
We'll do
Hey,
this
Julie,
again
you'd
soon.
make a great
and,
Great to see all these faces.
Excuse me?
Julie, you've just shown that you would make a great dominatrix.
Have a good night, everybody.
Turn her off, quick.
Vote, vote, vote.
Going to be tremendous.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, class officers. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
We'll be back for more.
Ray.
Yep, we just finished.
Oh, okay.